Hey everybody, today is May 4th, 2020. 50 years ago today on this spot where I currently am at Kent State University was a tragedy that occurred where four students were killed, nine others were wounded. I'd like to thank Mr. Pratt for coming up here with me today. We're on location, he's doing the filming. I originally wanted to bring my students up here. It obviously didn't work out, and then with the COVID-19 and everything, they shut everything down. They were supposed to have a commemoration today, but instead, Mr. Pratt and I drove up, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened here on that fateful day 50 years ago, Monday, May 4th, 1970. So, brief background is Nixon came in. Nixon wins the presidency, says he's going to end the war with honor. It's called Vietnamization, as we are training the South Vietnamese forces as they're ready to go into battle. We are then going to gradually withdraw and bring our troops home. To Nixon's credit, he was doing that. During his first year as president, he brought home approximately 115,000 of our forces. However, by the time you get to April of 1970, he decided that he was going to send 30,000 American troops and about 65,000 or so South Vietnamese troops across the Cambodian border into Cambodia to chase down North Vietnamese troops who had been hitting us and sneaking across the border, thinking that we would not escalate the war. Well, Nixon decided he was going to chase them over the border, and because of that, on April 30th, on a Thursday evening, he spoke to the American people on television, explained the Cambodian intrusion, I guess you want to call it. The American people, especially the young doves, the college students, viewed it as an escalation or invasion, and everything would sort of erupt on college campuses over those next few days, that next weekend. So I'm at Kent State University, which is the epicenter of this event. Right over here, Mr. Pratt can show you, it's just a little empty field right now, but this is the spot where the ROTC building was. After Nixon's speech on Thursday night, I'm talking about the invasion, Friday night, a lot of the college students were over at the bars, came back, started, I guess, protesting a little bit. You know, they had a few drinks in them. They were doing some things they probably shouldn't have done, and they ended up shutting all the bars down. And protesters were called in from around the country. Signs started to go up saying, "Why is the ROTC building still here?" And Saturday night, after the mayor of the town had, I don't want to call it martial law, but had put a lockdown on a lot of the town and the campus, the ROTC building, which stood here, was torched. The entire thing was nothing but smoldering ashes by the next morning. So we're going to move our way over here. This is the field where all of the students on Monday morning had set up for their protest. The protest was supposed to take place at noon that day. And you can see over here, there's some people here today. There's a bell. This bell that we're going to walk over to, this was a bell that was traditionally used. They would ring it every time the football team won a game. And they decided this was going to be the bell that was going to be rung at 11 a.m. to let everybody know that within the hour, the protest of the Cambodian invasion was going to start. So we're going to head over toward here. All of the protesters, actually you can stop right there, all the protesters were all lined up here, which you'll see it all in the videos and stuff that I'm also going to add to the classroom thing. But all the protesters were all around here, around the bell, up on the hill, and when you see the video, you'll see they were all up on that building right there, across the hall. And right here is where the National Guard troops that were called in. The mayor was freaking out. He called the governor, asked the governor to send National Guard troops, which they did. A lot of these National Guard troops were college students at like Akron and some other schools, but most of them were just working class people. They were sent here, and as they were here, The protesters who were here on the Monday were yelling things at them, pigs, all this sort of stuff. They were throwing rocks at them, bricks at them. You know, it was just a real ugly scene going on here. And what ends up happening is, right just after noon, as all the students are here, the National Guard is told to remove the students, and they start marching on them in the exact way that we're marching right now. They're going to use tear gas originally, and a lot of the students are going to scatter because of that, and a lot of the students are going to grab the tear gas. It was a very windy day, so the tear gas wasn't doing much to them. They were able to pick up the canisters and throw them back at the National Guard troops. So here's the bell over here. That was the symbolic bell where it was rung to start this event, still standing. All right, so the troops then are going to come up this hill. We're walking up. You keep with me? You good? They come up this hill here, and they're pushing the students up on the other side of this, which we're going to get to here in a second. You can see there are a lot of people out here today for this event that was supposed to happen, but they're here, I'm guessing, in respect for the 4 dead. 4 of the dead, 2 of them were actually here protesting the invasion of Cambodia. 2 of those that were killed were students walking to class. One of those students who was killed was an ROTC member here. It was really unfortunate. 9 others wounded. So, show this was correct. Right there is the pagoda. And directly in front of the pagoda is where the National Guard lined up and took a knee after massing together, which leads a lot of people to believe that maybe there was an order to fire, but nobody's 100% sure on that. National Guardsmen are lined up across here, aiming down this way toward the parking lots here. All right, you see the statue directly in front of us. Let's walk toward that. Right here, one of the more famous photographs of the event, the massacre, was taken right here. From this side, the photograph comes across this way, and one of the young men was laying right here. He had been shot in the chest. Come up here. He did survive, but his photograph, which I'll add to Classroom, that photograph from the cover of Time magazine, or excuse me, Life magazine, that ended up on the front cover of all those things. If you look right there, here, there's one of the bullet holes from that day. There's another one up here somewhere. Maybe that's the only one. All right, that might be the only one. Bear with us. We're trying to do this on the fly here. Now, if you walk down this way, the students who were all running from the National Guardsmen, they were all down here, and there's 4 areas where the bodies of the dead lay. Now, where this man is standing right over here, this one here was the one that had the most famous photograph, where the young man, Jeff Miller, was struck down. He was laying here with blood coming out of his head, obviously dead when the shot went through his face there. And as he's laying there, there was a senior photojournalism major who was here trying to document everything that was happening. And there was a 14-year-old runaway who was just walking through at the time, who ended up seeing the body laying there and runs over and yells out, screaming for help next to the body of Jeff Miller, the senior photojournalism major, snapped the photograph that is the most famous photograph of the Kent State Massacre. That photograph would go on the front pages of every magazine, every newspaper around the country. It led the news. It was the photograph that was taken that led Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, the folk band, rock band at the time, to write the song Ohio about the Kent State Massacre. But that image would go on to win that young man the Pulitzer Prize that year, and they won multiple Pulitzer Prizes for their, the students did, for their efforts, their journalism during this time. So this is the spot right here where the body lay, live. You can see some people have brought some flowers and candles and written some things here. All right, we have people at all these as they walk around.
We're at 11 minutes.
Not bad. I hope you're better than what probably better than just my head. Yes. Here was another spot. This was Allison Krauss. Allison Krauss was one of the two who was protesting. She was actually from Pittsburgh. She had just gotten engaged with her fiance, and the two of them decided that they were actually going to be leaving Kent State within the week at the end of that school year, and they were going to Buffalo to start their lives together and go to college there. And unfortunately, she perished here that day, right at this spot behind one of the automobiles. Sandy Schur was one of the students who was just walking to class, and this was her final resting spot right here.
Well, one, because I'm young, and two, it's like, I don't have a degree. I got to play.
This was the final resting spot of William Schroeder, I think is how his name's pronounced, and he was a ROTC member here at Kent State at the time. He was gunned down. Right over here is the final memorial that they put up. They refused to refused to acknowledge the situation, the massacre that occurred for about 20 years, but the administration in the early 90s decided that this was something that needed to be talked about and shown. They have a beautiful museum here, and today obviously they really do a fine job of making sure